Hello, and welcome to Better Than Art School. Okay, so we've had a color theory lecture that talked about the three dimensions of color, which are hue, value, and intensity. We've had a lecture on hue, which is the name of the color, or what I was calling the first dimension of color. It's the way our eyes encode a wavelength of light. Then we had a lecture on value, how light or dark the color is, and this is our final lecture in this first little series, and this is on intensity, on saturation, on chroma, all those words. Okay, so intensity is how intense the color is, meaning how colorful is the color, how much chroma is in it. Is it dull? Is it washed out? Well, then it's losing intensity. Okay, so intensity means, so basically if you take a tube of paint and you squeeze it out, that's the most intense it's going to get. When you add white to it, when you add black to it, when you add another color to it, it's going to lose intensity as you mix it more. Okay, and intensity covers both temperature and also saturation. So I'm using intensity and saturation almost interchangeably here, but technically intensity would cover both of these things. Temperature of the color means yellow is a hotter color. It's got a higher temperature than blue. And so blue has more value. It's darker than yellow at its full intensity, but it's less intense. So yellow's more intense, blue's has more value if you want to look at it that way. And saturation again is just how much color, how much chroma is in the color. Okay, so if this is a little hard to understand at this point, maybe this chart will help. This is a Munsell chart. And what's going on is if you go to the further you go right, the more intense the color is getting. Okay, so the value dimension is up and down. It's all just one hue, so the hue dimension is just baked in the cake. And as you go further right, you're getting more and more intense. So go along the top row, number 9 there. Look at 9, that row, and look at how the most intense yellow is on the far right, and as we're moving left, it's getting more and more washed out, okay, until we get to a fully neutral color with no chroma in it whatsoever. And those are supposed to be all the exact same value, but there are different intensities. So if you can hold the value constant, if you can hold the hue constant, you can really see shifts in intensity. Then your eyes can be sensitized to seeing this shift in intensity. So red has it's fully intense at a different value than yellow is. Yellow's highest intensity in a very light value. Red is darker at full intensity, and blue is darker still, but they're both darker when they get to their full intensity. And because, remember I said yellow is just more intense than blue, so blue doesn't have as many steps to go. Yellow goes way out here. Blue just goes, 5 steps. Okay, red goes 7 steps, looks like. So that's the idea here. But any of these rows you look at, as you go right to left, it's getting less and less saturated. The color is losing chroma as you go left to right. So you can affect the intensity of your paintings by either the color itself, meaning like, is it right out of the tube? Is there an intense color to begin with? Or what you surround the color with. Remember, every aspect of color is relative, meaning every aspect of color is context specific. That's what relative means in this way. It doesn't just mean everything's relative, whatever that means. It means things are context specific, okay? So if you take a bright color and you surround it by gray, it's going to look even more intense. If you take a really intense color and you surround it by an even more intense color, it's going to look less intense. Okay? So the left side of the color wheel is just naturally more intense. The yellow orange, the orange, those are just more intense colors than green, blue-green. Okay, they seem to come out at you. There's this rule in color theory that says you look into a blue, you look at a red, and yellow looks at you. Okay, so yellow seems to come out at you. That means that's the intensity happening to you. It's coming out at you. Okay, so intensity and saturation is just a psychological correlate of spectral purity, meaning the more pure the color, the less interference between you and the color, the more saturated, the more intense it is. Okay, there's not a direct mapping between spectral purity and saturation like in all these cases, and there's still mysteries of color, but if you stare at this little crosshair in the middle of the screen, stop looking at me, just look at the crosshair, and just stare at that for 20 seconds, And when I switch slides, keep staring in that same spot, okay? I wish I could take away the little me part of this video, but it's okay. Just don't look at me. Just look at that crosshair, and when I change, keep looking at that same spot. Okay, so the right side should look a little more intense, okay? It's actually all just one big block of yellow, but the right side kind of looked more intense for a second. All right, so when you control intensity, you can make your paintings more sophisticated looking. That's all I'm saying here. So why is it more sophisticated than, say, this painting? So look at them side by side. And am I just being elitist? Am I saying the painting on the left is better? Yeah, I am saying that. It's better, though, for a technical reason. It's better for a formal reason. It's taking all three dimensions of color into account. It's seeing value within a color. It's seeing intensity within a color. The painting on the right here is just all colors at equal intensity. There's no thought about saturation as a dimension of color. It's just bright colors. So in that way, in this three-dimensional way that we're talking about, the painting on the left has more dimensions, and so it's more rich of a visual experience. So you can make your own paintings have more sophistication if you think about all three dimensions of color, including intensity. Okay, there's an otter and her baby, and I will see you next time. Thank you.